There's always a risk I might find a quote that will make me cry, so I don't want to do that. Okay, so my table's crooked. You know, like when we used to go to bars and your table is crooked. Look how crooked. I'm sorry, I don't want to make you feel swimmy. But yeah, so my table's crooked, so I need to find like a book of matches. Hi everyone! Welcome back to my channel. It's Jess. I'm here to give you a bit of an update on, there have been quite a lot of books that I've read. Just for fun, you know, just for shits and giggles. That's an expression that we sometimes use. I don't know if you use that expression, let me know. Some other books in March that weren't part of the Tis the Damn Readathon I talked about, which was that Laurent Gaude book in French that I really enjoyed. So I talked about that in another video, which you can... I really enjoyed Anxious People. I think that majority of people who've read Anxious People do really like it. I mean, it came pretty highly recommended. And initially I thought, I don't like this book. I don't know. Initially I didn't like it. It really reminded me of The Dinner. I don't know if anybody remembers The Dinner. I've forgotten the name of the author. Herman. Let me look it up. Whenever I do a video, I think, oh, I'm going to research this video ahead of time and prepare it. And then I just get like an instinct of wanting to go onto camera. And I'm never like as prepared as I wanted. Herman Koch? I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. So when I first started reading Anxious People, it really reminded me of The Dinner. And I think it's just because it's a work in translation. And there's something in the writing in translation that was very similar. I think the writing style or the translation or a result of the translation is what created that. I think it just felt a little bit truncated, the writing, and I think that might have something to do with the translation. And then I also kind of was like, initially when I started reading Anxious People, I was kind of irritated with the writing style. I just was sort of felt gimmicky to me, and I was like, you know, okay, like this is fun and entertaining, so I appreciated that, but I don't know, it was just kind of, I thought it was a little gimmicky. And then as I got further into the story, and especially in the last quarter of the book, I would say, I kind of at some point fell in love with the book and the things that the author, like not so much the story itself, but the commentary that the author was making, which I always find is usually what clinches me. Some people it's the characters in the book that do it for them, or the style of the writing, which all of those things are important to me. Obviously the pacing, the style of the writing, the prose. What did I learn, or what did this book make me think about in terms of the human experience? I think I've said that before. So, you know, I really did end up falling in love with Anxious People. So anyhow, the basic premise of the story is that it's about the stories of a bank robber who becomes a hostage taker and fails in both of those enterprises. It's about this bank robber. It's also about the police officer who investigates this bank robbery / hostage taking, who's also a failure at his job. So it's about a lot of people fumbling their way through life. And it's also a commentary on our society and what happens when you do make mistakes in society and what the consequences are. So, and I just found that the messages the writer wanted to communicate came through very well. Sometimes it was a little too like a windy road of different storylines and different characters. That was a little bit too twisty for my taste, but I can forgive all of that because I thought it was well crafted and well written, and I thought it was thoughtful, and it was very funny. So what I enjoyed most about it was the humanity. In this story, we're often reminded that by the characters and by the event that people make bad decisions when they have really good intentions. A friend of mine used to say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think that's pretty apropos of the story, because, you know, you can have the best of intentions and end up in a place of like a lot of mistakes happening and like kind of spiraling out of control situations. I found the pacing to be really good. I thought the read was just a real pleasure, but I also sometimes had the feeling when I was reading the book of like, oh my God, what now? Like, what next? There was just a lot of twists and turns. I also thought there were some cliches, but of course that could have also been intentional. But yeah, no, I really, in the end, really would recommend this book and really did enjoy it. Someone's talking about never having had an affair with anyone. And their comment is like, I've never had an affair, but once I changed hairdressers and I didn't dare walk past the old one for several years. And I could relate to this so well. I hope my hairdresser is not watching, or any former hairdressers, because sometimes if I like just decide, oh, you know, I feel like just going to a new place where I don't know the hairdresser, I feel so guilty because I've like abandoned my hairdresser. I could relate to that. Jim held onto the handrail to stop himself collapsing as his heart broke. So a lot of humanity in this book. Julia shrugged the way children who grew up too soon do, shaking the feelings off. The truth, there isn't any. All we've managed to find out about the boundaries of the universe is that it hasn't got any. And all we know about God is that we don't know anything. And then my favorite quote from the book, and my favorite kind of message from the book, was like, the message of the book is to continue to still try, even though you may make mistakes. So at least that's the takeaway that I got from the book. And this is the quote that kind of, I think, shows that. My wife used to quote some guy who said, "What was it?" He said that if we knew the world was going to hell, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Is there a parallel going on here? He said that even if he knew that the world was going to hell tomorrow, he'd plant an apple tree today. So the point there being that even if you know that things are going to backfire or things are going to go wrong in the future, there's merit in doing your best and trying and putting effort into making the world a better place in the here and now. It reminds me a little bit of that quote. I can't remember who said it. I used to have it on my fridge. It's do what you can where you are with what you have. Is that right? Something along those lines. So, I mean, I had a couple of other quotes written down, but I have a couple of other books that I wanted to talk about. I recommend Anxious People if you're looking for something good to read. So here is a discovery for me. I have never read anything by Kristin Hannah before, and I read this so fast. Oh my goodness, I read this so fast. I mean, I can't tell you how many days because I don't remember, but it was such a fast read. It was a real page turner. So this is my first Kristin Hannah read, The Nightingale. The Nightingale follows two sisters during the Second World War in France, and these two sisters, very different personalities. Their last name is Rossignol, which is the French word for nightingale, which is why the title of the book is The Nightingale. The two sisters are Vienne and Isabelle. And Vienne is the one who falls in love and marries and lives in a small town and has set up a home, and Isabella's more of a rebel. She's been sent off to different boarding schools. Their mother died, and the father was in the First World War, fought in the First World War, came home from the First World War, somewhat changed. The whole story is about their two lives through the Second World War, and it is so good. I mean, for so many different reasons. I mean, obviously, it's a really great story. The characters are really good in this story. But also, it's historical fiction, but it's historical fiction made accessible. Like, truly accessible in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. So I was super happy to discover her writing. It's so sad. I don't normally cry when I read books. It's from Noelle Gallagher that I really originally found out. I mean, it's Noelle Gallagher who, like, all of it, really. The whole thing, the videos, half the books that I'm reading. Thank you, Noelle. Couldn't believe it. I'm trying to remember now what part made me cry. I think probably it was one of the descriptions of something horrible happening. Yeah, this was such a good read. Just to summarize a little bit better, the two sisters, as I said, Vienne lives in this small town, and Isabelle is in Paris, and her father had a bookstore. And then the war broke out, and French, I guess, made a deal with the Nazis, and but all of the French fighters were held as prisoners of war, and there was a resistance. There was an underground resistance to the Germans and their occupation. His bookstore is destroyed, and Isabel leaves. I mean, there's a mass exodus from Paris, and Isabel is part of that mass exodus, but she meets up with somebody en route when they're leaving to try to escape, and that person kind of inspires her to be rebellious. It encourages her rebellion. Isabel's a very rebellious character. Gosh, it's just it's kind of epic because it goes through all of the different phases of the war, from the initial occupation to the increasing pressure to eliminate people who are either part of the resistance or are Jewish. Vian ends up with a Nazi general who is boarded at her home. Her husband is sent off to the front and becomes a prisoner of war, so she's left on her own, and Isabel's on her own as well. So in a sense, it's a very feminist story about these two sisters and their involvement, and Isabel becomes a figure in the resistance. She saves the lives of American fighters when the Americans get involved with the war, and she is part of an underground resistance to move Allied forces out of France, which is occupied by the Germans, and into Spain through the Pyrenees. And so it's got that excitement, the part of the story that is Isabel's story of being in the resistance and how operated during the war in France. I mean, there was so much stuff in here that I didn't realize about the French, about World War II, and about France and the politics at the time. There was so much that I didn't know, and that I learned in the process of reading this. So there's really there's a lot of really hard scenes. I mean, there's a friendship between Vian and this woman Rachel, who's her really good friend. They're both teachers in the school in this small town, and Rachel is Jewish. And there's a moment in the story where Vian, the characters are constantly put in situations where they have to, for their own safety, which is obviously condition of war, right? For their own safety, they have to betray other people, and Vian's put in a situation where she's being asked to betray her friends. I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but just to give you an example of the writing and how good the writing was. Initially I thought, this is going to be, maybe I wasn't sure about how much I would enjoy the writing, and I really, really enjoyed the writing. She's an excellent writer. This is when her friend Rachel is being taken away. It progressively gets worse and worse for Jews in France. They start asking for lists of people, and those people lose their jobs, and then they start asking for, and the people that who lose their jobs are people who are Jews or who are part of the resistance. So they really create the atmosphere of snitching on other people and giving up names of other people within the small town. It's at this point in the story where Rachel is being taken away. So it goes from that to the Jews having to wear, of course, the yellow star so that they're identified. And then from there, the Jews start being taken away to camps. So this is the point in the story. And oh my God, I might cry while I read this excerpt. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll try not to cry while I read this excerpt. I don't know. The whole story is obviously so sad, but it's very humanized in this book. So Rachel is the one. So Rachel, it doesn't say Rachel looked at Vian, but she looked at Vian, and the universe of their friendship was in her eyes. The secrets they'd shared, the promises they'd made and kept, the dreams of their children that bound them as nearly as sisters. Get out of here, Rachel cried hoarsely. Go. Vian backed away, and before she knew it, she had turned and begun shoving her way through the crowd, away from the platform and the soldiers and the dogs, away from the smell of fear and the crack of whips, and the sound of women wailing and babies crying. She didn't allow herself to slow until she reached the end of the platform. There, Holding Ari closely, which is Rachel's son, she turned back because she took Rachel's son for her because she was being taken away. Rachel stood in the black, yawning entrance of a cattle car, her face and hands still smeared with her daughter's blood. She scanned the crowd, saw Vianne, and raised her bloody hand in the air. And then she was gone, shoved back by the women stumbling in around her. The door to the cattle car clanged shut. Whoa! I did not know I was going to get so emotional. Yeah, so this book will make you cry. In that scene where she's being taken away, I mean, her daughter, it's just a really, really good story as well. And I think, I think that there are a lot of books about the Second World War that do not do kind of justice to the experience, and in particular, obviously, the plight of the Jewish people. I think there's a lot of kind of savior stories, German characters who, saved people and all of that. And I don't know, I think it's really important to understand just how horrendous it was. And I think that this book does a good job of that, as well as telling a good story, but as well, giving credence to the story of what happened to people in the war, and not just people who were caught up in the middle, but actually to Jews. And it really humanizes Jewish people, and so it also tells a story of how horrible it was what happened during the war. But that's not the whole story. There's also a lot of mystery, a lot of intrigue, and there's a love story in there as well of Vianne and her husband and Isabel, and who she falls in love with. It's got it all. So it doesn't weigh you down too much with the hard stuff, which is hard to read. And I mean, I had other beautiful passages about love, or very meaningful passages about, or very feminist passages, because I found this book to be very feminist. But I'm gonna leave it there for now. Okay, what's next? Oh, you can see it behind me, right? Okay, so here's the thing. Books that I'm talking about today are very feminist. International Women's History Month. No, International Women's History Month. And there is International Women's Day in the early part of March. I read The Power, which was part, again, of Noelle Gallagher's book club. And I also read The Handmaid's Tale. Well, I'll talk about The Handmaid's Tale first because I read it before. I kind of read them at the same time. And reading The Handmaid's Tale at the same time as The Power, so I'll hold up The Power. Reading The Handmaid's Tale at the same time as The Power was a little hard on The Power, I'm going to say, because The Handmaid's Tale, if you have not read The Handmaid's Tale, this is an insane work of genius. This is such a good book. And I remember it kind of vaguely, but I mean, I didn't realize how great it was at the time. Clearly, I didn't appreciate it at the time. I mean, I remember being affected by it, but there's so much to say about The Handmaid's Tale. Just initially, I would say, forget the content and all of that, the dystopian world and all of the genius that went into that part of the book, because it's she does such an amazing job of world building, and she does such a great job of presenting the story, and it's such an important feminist commentary and all that stuff. And let's just talk about the pacing of this book. I don't know if anybody has talked about the pacing of this book in other reviews, but this book is the way that she's organized each chapter and each paragraph, and the rhythm that you get into when you're reading this book, or at least for me on this reread, there is a rhythm to the reading of this book that was it was like being in a hammock or a swing or something. It just had this wonderful natural rhythm to the telling of the story that I really, really appreciated this time around. And every paragraph that's written in here is packed in such a way as to be such a good little package of language. I haven't read anything else by Margaret Atwood, so I guess I'll be reading something else to see if I have the same response. Well, I think I'll try to read Alias Grace. I don't know. There's obviously a ton of commentary in here that's important. You could write many a thesis about The Handmaid's Tale. I have watched the television series, and the book is a million times better. I mean, there's something about seeing the images of the world it's very beautiful, the television series, and it is good in and of itself. And I hope that it encourages people to go and read Margaret Atwood's book, because her book is just incredible. Her book leaves a lot more open to question, like, than the television series does. And the television series takes the world that she had created and kind of turns it into like an action story. Like, there's a lot of like, I don't know if you've watched, let me know if you've watched the television series for The Handmaid's Tale, but it kind of turns it into like a series where, you know, I find there's a lot of repetition in the television show where she's trying to escape, gets caught, or something happens, and then she goes back. I don't know. It just seems to be they're really milking it in the TV show, let me just say, I think. And I don't think it's necessary. Like, I think it would have been really great. That the visual impact of what they did in the television series is fabulous. I think it just would have been really great as a movie. I don't think it needs to be a television series, personally. It's a dystopian novel where there's been a seizure of power by a very religious group, and an increase in infertility in the population. And this group takes control of the government. So it's like this very authoritarian kind of regime in this world called Gilead. I guess it's a result of, it says on the back, it leads to a second America, which is a result of a civil war. And Canada is like the safe place to escape to, or the UK are the safe places to escape to. And then there are these social roles that are established, and then you can't break any of those roles. The two options for women who aren't wives of important commanders are either you're a handmaid, or you're sent to the colonies. And the colonies is like this, it's like a work camp where they send all the old women, all the women who are past their childbearing years, people who are ill or infertile women who are ill or infertile go there. And there's a lot of executions as well of people who break the rules. Sometimes you don't even know how or why they broke the rules. So it's very dystopian. We lived as usual by ignoring. Ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. You have to work at it. Oh my gosh, that hit me so hard. It makes me think about our world right now and all of the issues that we're facing. Oh God, this book is so like even pertinent, right? I mean, it's terrifying that it would be pertinent, but I'm not just talking about women. I'm thinking also about race. Like, all of this behavior of ignoring all the terrible things in our society, and just turning the other cheek. Like, I can't count the number of times people turn the other cheek. And she's right. Like, ignoring isn't the same as ignorance. It's not because people don't know that terrible things are happening. They're just not addressing it, right? Whew, it sent chills up my spine. Oh my gosh. On freedom. Let's see. Oh, this is so good. She says a lot of times the narrative is told like from the perspective of this one handmaiden, Offred, and she has a lot of flashbacks to her life before this new world order, and there's a lot of reflection on what she's lost and her just adjusting to the loss of her freedom. And that's what this passage is about. And it's all under the guise in this new world order that women are protected. So she's reflecting back on her old life, and she says women were not protected then, or at least that's the rhetoric, right? Women were not protected then. I remember the rules that were never spelled out, but that every woman knew. Don't open your door to a stranger, even if he says it's the police. Make him slide his ID under the door. Don't stop on the road to help a motorist pretending to be in trouble. Keep the locks on and keep going. If anyone whistles, don't turn to look. Don't go into a laundromat by yourself at night. I think about laundromats, what I wore to them, shorts, jeans, jogging pants, what I put into them, my own clothes, my own soap, my own money I had earned myself. I think about having such control. Now we walk along the same street in red pairs, and no man shouts obscenities at us, speaks to us, touches us. No one whistles. There is more than one kind of freedom. said Aunt Lydia. Freedom to and freedom from. In the days of anarchy, it was freedom to. Now you are being given freedom from. Don't underrate it. Mind blown. I mean, that's just like one paragraph. Mind blown. Like, what is freedom? Wow, you know? Sorry, I just find it like, I don't know, it blew my mind, that passage. Think about being a woman, and I think about all the things that we do to try to protect ourselves. And then she's describing this world where she's protected, but she's a slave. Like, it's just, whew, so many levels going on in Margaret Atwood's brain. So there was that passage on freedom that totally blew my mind. And then there's also this short passage. It's actually about her husband, Luke, or her husband who she's been separated from, and she doesn't know what happened to him. And she's recalling a time when, right before they had to leave, and they had to leave their cat behind. But it's a commentary about objectification and how you can do these horrible things. So they're trying to figure out what to do because they're running. They're fleeing their home because of this occupation. Just a little window of time to maybe escape. And they're trying to figure out what to do with their cat. And Offred says, well, we could just leave her. She'd hang around and mew at the door. Someone would notice we were gone. We could give her away, I said. One of the neighbors. Even as I said this, I knew how foolish that would be. I'll take care of it, Luke said. And because he said it instead of her, I knew he meant kill. That is what you have to do before you kill, I thought. You have to create an it where none was before. You do that first in your head, and then you make it real. So that's how they do it, I thought. I seemed never to have known that before. So she's just commenting on like, how can people be so brutal to other human beings? And it's the observation that it's the objectification that has to happen before the brutality can happen. And I mean, that is just about a cat, and it's just a neat little observation that's so powerful. I don't know. I'd love to hear what everyone else thinks of The Handmaid's Tale. Is everybody else as enamored of The Handmaid's Tale as I am? Because I am enamored of this book. Everybody should read this book. I can't believe it. I read sometimes. I mean, I know it's everyone's. I have an ex-boyfriend who used to say there's no accounting for taste. And I would agree with that, because it's really hard to justify sometimes why you love something or you think something is so important, and it's not. People don't agree, which I think is good. I think it's good for there to be a wide range of opinions, and I love to hear other people's opinions because I find it really interesting. But I have seen like low ratings for The Handmaid's Tale and people commenting that it's not very good, and I would be really curious as to what you didn't like about The Handmaid's Tale, because I'm having a hard time with that. I'm like, what? Well, like, what way is it not good? So I'm curious to hear what people have to say about that. So leading into the Power, which I did not like. And I think it's because I was reading it at the same time as The Handmaid's Tale. Look, I didn't hate The Power. I thought it was entertaining. I enjoyed it as a story. I really did enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it as a feminist commentary. I really did not. I had so much trouble with this book. So let me give the summary. This is a story of reimagining of the world, if the world were different. And in this case, if women had power, and the power in this case is that they have like a physical ability to electrocute people. It's deadly. And it's kind of an interesting concept because women are, I guess, powerless when it comes to the social constructs, or have absolutely less power politically and socially. And so this is the idea that a weapon is power, and therefore if women are weaponized, then they have power. But then what she does with it I find really troubling, because it really isn't kind of about, like, I see feminism as, it's not about women versus men. Feminism isn't in my mind, and never really has been. So I don't really understand this idea of feminism. Like, feminism to me is like, we're all humans. Not that we are the same, but that we all have equality, equity. We shouldn't be oppressed because of our our gender or our sex or, it's intersectional, right? So, and not our color of our skin and not the language we speak, not any of it. And I didn't like what she did with this book. I mean, it was basically a reversal. So the women have this power and they're able to harm others and therefore they abuse it. I don't know. I just was like, really? That's what you want to do with that? Like, I don't know. I was disappointed because I kind of thought it was going to be this really super feminist read, and it's not. I mean, I will say that I did enjoy the story. I'm not here to trash it. I just didn't like the way it was just a role reversal, and I didn't think she did as good of a job at the world building. I mean, I was reading it side by side with The Handmaid's Tale, and it was just totally different from The Handmaid's Tale. It was a little bit all over the place. There was a brutality on the part of the women in the power. Like, it's not to say that that women were not implicated in the oppression of other women in The Handmaid's Tale. They were. But it was just so well crafted and their choices were so limited and so much of it, and it had the central idea was around fertility. It was very well organized and well thought out. It was genius, but this I just thought was like it just couldn't find its bearings or something. And maybe I'm not being fair. I know there are people who really enjoyed this book, so I don't want to be. So yeah, this power that they acquire, which is like a weapon, she sort of equates it to like wealth. She says it doesn't matter that she shouldn't, that she never would, so use the power, use this electrical capacity. What matters is that she could if she wanted, and the power to hurt was a kind of wealth. This is all about power and politics. Like, here's a perfect example of the role reversal. As soon as they found out that the girls had this power, they'd separated the boys from the girls on the 5th day. It seemed obvious when they worked out the girls were doing it. Already, there are parents telling their boys not to go out alone, not to stray too far. Once you've seen it happen, it's this whole thing of like now boys are in danger. It was just like taking women's and men's roles as they exist now and just flipping them because women had this power. Even to like include, scenes where men are assaulted by women who have the power, and the women politicians who have the power are abusing their power, both the religious leadership and the political leadership. Like, I don't know. It was just like, oh, I wish I had wanted more. I had wanted more from this book than what it gave me. I thought the role reversal was not enough. And I thought she could have done a lot more with it. And I guess it was a missed opportunity. But like I said, I'm a little conflicted about it because I did enjoy the story. I enjoyed the characters. My favorite character was Margot. I enjoyed the political commentary. I really enjoyed also Eve, who was the religious leader. I just think that it was really too simplistic in the way that it dealt with the issues that I brought up. So yeah, especially relative to The Handmaid's Tale. Story of Kim Jiyong growing up in South Korea as a millennial woman, and it is pretty amazing. I can't tell you exactly why it's so amazing, but I'm gonna try. So what is so amazing about this book is that she describes experiences that I have had in my life as a woman here in Canada. Not exactly the same experience, obviously, but a lot of similar experiences at work, experiences in school, experiences in terms of your profession, experience in terms of what women are responsible for or seen as being responsible for, which is basically to support men in succeeding. But like when I was going through similar things in my life, all this stuff was just like I had trained my brain to accept all of these things as my lot in life. That's what it is to be a girl. And the way she writes, it's like, no, it's not. This is not how it should be. Like all the observation, and every time I would read an observation, it would just like hit me and go like, oh my God, yeah, that's so messed up. Like, I'll just give you an example. She's talking about her mom. And she's saying, you know, she truly believed he was a decent husband to her for not sleeping around and not hitting her. I used to think the same thing about boyfriends. I was like, you know, yeah, he doesn't work. Yeah, I pay for everything. Yeah, I do everything around the house, but you know, he's not cheating on me. That was like a big deal. Like when I was in my 20s, it was like, well, if your boyfriend's not cheating on you, you're doing real well. Like you've got it going on. I mean, that's not good, right? Wow, the bar is set so low. At one point, her mom says, like, she says, when Kim JiYoung was in elementary school, her mother was reading a one-line comment her homeroom teacher had made on her journal assignment and said, I wanted to be a teacher too, which said, I wanted to be a teacher too. JiYoung burst into laughter. She found the idea outrageous because she thought until then that mothers could only be mothers. It's true. In elementary, I got the best grades out of all 5 of us. I was better than your eldest uncle. So why didn't you become a teacher? I had to work to send my brothers to school. That's how it was with everyone. All women lived like that back then. Well, why didn't you become a teacher now? Now I have to work to send you kids to school. That's how it is with everyone. All mothers live like this these days. Like this idea that like women are the backbone of society, or the backbone of the economy. Like if women were not working in the domestic domain of the home to support men going to school in professional capacities, or later on as wives in professional, so that men can work in professional capacities, it's like, oh my goodness, there's something in their writing that's just so simple and straightforward and just puts it right up there in your face, and you just can't ignore it. You're like, whoa, yeah, the world is completely sexist. Hello. I mean, and she's describing South Korea, but like, I mean, whew, so much sexism. Oh, and she talks about like getting her period. God. So here's what she describes when, you know, on the experience of getting her period. One of her friends this is like how parents are responding to kids getting their periods. One of her friends got a bouquet of flowers from her father when she started her periods. Another had a family party complete with cake. But to most girls, it was a secret shared only among mothers and daughters. An irritating, painful, somehow shameful secret. It was no different in Jiyoung's family. The mother avoided referring to it directly, as if something that should not be said out loud had happened, as she offered her ramen soup. Uncomfortable and anxious, Jiyong lay awake next to her sister that night and calmly went over the things that had happened. She thought about menstruation and ramen, about ramen and sons and daughters and chores. A few days later, she received a gift from her sister, a cloth pouch the size of her palm containing 6 regular sanitary pads. And it goes on a little bit, but I mean, yeah, that's true. All true. When she's working in a shop and how women get harassed at work. Jiyoung's situation was better compared to that of other girls who had part-time jobs in addition to school and cram school. Employers harassed them for being inappropriately dressed or not having the right attitude and held their wages ransom. Customers thought the right to harass young women came with their purchase. The girls stowed away repulsive, frightening experiences with males deep in their hearts without even realizing it. Oof. I mean, so that's just a taste. And you can see the tabs. She goes on to make these extremely like profound observations, which are all just, yeah, it's true. That's right. Been there, done that. Still happening? I guess so, maybe. I mean, some of the stats that she refers to stats throughout the book to really back up the observations. Yeah, it's all there. It's all there in black and white. Everybody should read this book. It's excellent. The only thing I will say is that I wasn't super happy with the ending. I think it just ended a little bit abruptly for me, and I would have liked to have had just a bit more. It's short. It's a short, quick read, about 150 pages. Go out, get it. I know it's sold out in lots of places, but get it, read it. Hopefully it'll be taught in schools. Amazing book. All right, that's it for me today. I hope this wrap up of those few books has been insightful, if not entertaining. I hope I didn't bore you. And what else do I want to say? Oh, well, I'm halfway through A Little Life. Oh, I don't know how I feel about the book. I will talk about it soon. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy this video, give it a like. And if you didn't enjoy this video, then maybe keep it to yourself. And yeah, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think about the books that I talked about today. And yeah, thanks for spending this time with me today. I hope you have a good one. Bye! Cat's eye, I think. I have Alias Grace on my channel. I think I'll probably try, or my channel, my shelf. I've tried to read other Margaret Atwood's books, other books by Margaret Atwood, including holy mother, read this book. Shits and giggles.